Hello, my pretties. It's the Lion Queen here. Welcome to episode 241 of Shadows and Pretties. And today in this episode, I am going to be reviewing Ice Age: The Meltdown, which is the second movie of the Ice Age franchise. This movie came out in 2006, and since it's I guess 15, 16 years old or something, maybe 17 years old, I decided, you know what, in honor of the anniversary of it, which will be coming up at the end of March, I thought I would go ahead and, talk about this, movie. So, anyways, I guess with that being said, I am going to be talking about the second movie. This is a sequel to, Ice Age, the first one. Stars Dennis Leary as Diego, Ray Romano as Manny, John Leguizamo as Sid, and we also got Queen Latifah, who plays as Ellie in this movie, as well as the other movies. So, to relive your childhood and all that, there is a video game based on it. So I will say there is a video game based on the movie as well. And it is a sequel to the first Ice Age movie. So I guess we should get started with that. So let's get started. So basically it's about Manny, Sid, and Diego are currently living in the Palace Los Discon Ice Age in a valley surrounded by enormous high ice walls on all sides. However, the trio discovers that the ice wall is actually a dam that is barely holding a massive reservoir which could flood the valley to near mile underwater if it fails. A vulture tells them that there is a boat at the other end of the valley that may save them all, but they only have 3 ways to reach it or they die. So shortly after, a huge chunk of ice breaks up at the top of the dam, initiating their immediate evacuation. While Manny is struggling with the thought of possibility being the last of his own kind, Diego is revealed to suffer from severe hydrophobia due to his inability to swim, which basically means he's scared of the water. So during the evacuation, there is a couple of dinosaurs, Ceratosaurus and Maelstrom, who happened to be both frozen during the Mesozoic era, free themselves thanks to the melting ice, and seek to eat all the mammals as they can during the flood. However, the trio meet Ellie, who is another woolly mammoth, who believes that she is a possum, with her 2 brothers, adoptive brothers. First, Ellie introduces them is Crash and Eddie, the mischievous possums. Now, thinking that Manny and Ellie are the only 2 mammoths left on Earth, Sid invites them to tag along while the trio try to escape the flood. Meanwhile that Ellie accepts, thinking that they could protect her brothers and her out of the open, despite the delusion and her brother's mischief annoying Manny, who insists on convincing Ellie that she's a mammoth. After 2 dangerous encounters with Secretarius and Maelstrom while crossing a pond, Sid tries to teach Diego on how to swim, while Manny and Ellie discover an area to which it later recalls the place where she was found and adopted by Crash and Eddie's mother after she got lost from her biological family and never found them again. She finally realizes that she's a mammoth and expresses her suspicions on how different she was from the possums. Manny eventually begins to fall in love with her, but denies his feelings at first because he feels like he's replacing his deceased wife and child, as spouses and children are not something somebody could easily move on from, especially if that's someone who lost them through death. That's pretty much taken place from if you remember when I reviewed the first movie, I did mention, that Manny lost his first wife and child before the first movie started, and it's a flashback in those cave drawing scenes. Most of you guys who've seen the first movie should remember, that's what happened with Manny's old family, because, that's something that is heartbreaking, and it's really hard to move on. So, pretty much despite the bonding moment with Manny, she distances herself from him and suggests saving their species, as his trauma would only make him confused and insecure about how to properly express towards her. Ellie and Manny ultimately reconcile when they must cooperate to save the group when under the ground cracks under their feet. Ellie begins to recuperate Manny's feelings afterwards. Eventually, Sid gets kidnapped by a tribe of mini-Slavs who believes that Sid is the god of fire. Sid believes that he finally found respect, but they plan to sacrifice him by tossing him into a volcano, to which they believe would stop the flood. However, when Sid narrowly escapes the next morning, Sid tells the others about his experience, but they all dismiss it as a dream. After being harassed by vultures, the group finds a boat on the field of hot geysers, which separates Manny, Sid, and Diego from Ellie, Crash, and Eddie, who the two mammoths argue about which is the safest to go. Just as Manny, Sid, and Diego bypass the geysers, the ice dam subsequently fails, unleashing the devastating flood upon the valley. However, Ellie, Crash, and Eddie then took a safe yet longer way. They get trapped inside of a cave due to the falling rocks. Crash and Eddie escape through the small hole and warn Manny, who rushes back to go save her. Crash and Eddie then get taken by current Sid, who tries to save him, but his head on the ice block and gets knocked out, forcing Diego to overcome his fear of water in order to save him and the possums, using the tactics Sid had taught him earlier. Cretaceous and Maelstrom ambushes Manny underwater, but he manages to kill the two by tricking them into dislodging the boulder, allowing Manny to save Ellie from drowning at the same time. He and Ellie reunited with the others on top of the boulder, but as the water is still rising, Scrat, later on after a series of misadventures to get his acorn, climbs to the adjacent glacial wall beside him and advertently creates a long crack when he punctures the ice with his acorn. The crack eventually widens into a gigantic fissure, and pretty much which splits open the wall and drains the flood waters, saving everyone, but in the process, Scrat falls within the fissure and gets washed away. Shortly after Sid encounters with the mini sloth tribe once again, their leader suggests that Sid should join them, but Diego replies with that's a vital part in their herd, which makes Sid happy. A group of mammoths later on appear from the fissure, providing everyone that mammoths are not really extinct. Manny eventually lets Ellie go with the mammoths her since he's no longer the excuse to saving their species to be with her, and still thinks of his deceased family. However, after some near encouragement from his friends to let go of his past so he can have a future, he catches up to her and finally properly expresses his feelings, saying that he does not want them to be together because they have to, but because they want to. And he proposes her while hanging on a tree like a possum. I thought that was pretty funny. Which she happily accepts with the other mammoths celebrating the union. Manny, Ellie, Sid, Diego, Crash, and Eddie, they proceed to venture out of the valley as one happy family. However, after falling into the fissure and nearly drowning, Scrat is a near-death experience, enters a heaven full of acorns. He suddenly finds himself being sucked back just as he was about to reach a giant acorn. Although Scrat then discovers that he was being resuscitated by Sid through CPR, which ends up throwing him into a fit of rage, and he thinks Sid stole his acorn, which is nowhere to be found, and that's how the movie ends. Well, it's a pretty good story. After the release of the first Ice Age movie, the producer of the movie commented on a potential Ice Age sequel, as the success of Ice Age is something that gives the additional momentum, but however it was too early to say at the time, but something they can explore. Blue Sky Studios was already working on the sequel by June of 2002, and later on, Laurie Forte, the producer of the film in 2003, signed a multi-year deal with Fox Feature Films to develop and produce the animated films, a potential Ice Age sequel. So after a little bit of writing and stuff, in that same year of 2006, it was reported a plan to be the year of March of 31st, 2006. That's when the sequel has been set. So, it's a pretty good movie. I really thought it was a really nice movie. It is pretty funny, just like the first movie. I mean, I thought the first movie was funny and all. And the second movie, it does introduce some new characters, and the animation is pretty much just like the same as the older movies. I mean, we get to see the humor of all the characters. We get to see, some new monsters. Or enemies, whatever you prefer to call them. We get to see all of our favorite guys back in action, but although they have included some new guys, like new characters into the film just to make it, because they just want to entertain it by, introduce more new characters into the whole thing. Now, in all due honesty, I personally really liked the second movie. I thought it was a good movie to the first one. I mean, it was a really well-made movie. I definitely can say there is a lot of great opportunity when this movie came to be. And when I watched this as a kid, I honestly really thought it was a really good movie. I mean, I liked the plot, I liked the characters. They were pretty funny in their own way, weird as well, but they still managed to do pretty good. And this is just a really good sequel to the first movie, because when I saw the first movie, and I did review it on the channel, I mean, episodes ago of Shadows and Pretties, I definitely say that I will review the other sequels whenever I have the chance. So this sequel, I definitely gotta say, if you're an Ice Age fan and you like the first movie, I highly recommend you check out this movie. You will not be disappointed once you see the second movie. I mean, it's got a good storyline. It's a pretty good plot. I mean, I like how they ended up adding new characters. I thought it was really good for a movie and the sequel to Ice Age. It's rather for a really good concept for the movie. Now, however, I haven't watched this movie in like years because I was a kid when I watched it. But yeah, for those who haven't seen it, I highly suggest you click on the movie, check it out. You will not be disappointed. It's a really good movie, and I do like the concept of it of its own self. I thought the concept was well made in detail, especially how the movie, given that it's, awesome and the way it was like well written, I definitely see this as a pretty good sequel. Now, I do know there is other movies like the Dawn of the Dinosaurs, which I plan to review, as well as Continental Drift and Collision Course. I know I did review on some of these back when I was before I got my laptop, but that was back in 2020. This is just basically me rebooting it to make it 1,000 times better in quality, if that makes sense. So, I guess with that being said and that being the case, I personally recommend you guys check out the sequel to Ice Age if you haven't. And if you have not seen the first movie, I highly recommend you check out the first movie if you haven't. Also, check out the sequel if you haven't as well. So, with that being the case and with that being said, I recommend checking out this movie. You will not be disappointed. It's a pretty good movie. And I really see this as a really great sequel to the first Ice Age movie. It's a pretty good sequel. It's definitely well made. It's definitely a pretty great storyline. And especially with the concept and everything. It's well made in detail. Now, anyways, with that being the case and that being said, I'm going to sit here and just say, what did you guys think of the sequel to the first Ice Age? Did you like it? Did you like the first one more? Did you not like this movie? What are your thoughts in the comments below? Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are on the movie in the comments below, because I personally would like to hear what you guys all think. So anyways, I am the Lion Queen. I want to thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're new to my channel, feel free to leave this video a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, I'll be seeing you guys all in the next video. Peace out, and like always, everyone, I'll see you all next time.